Hello and welcome to episode 0 of Misha and Dianne Watch Santa Barbara.
Hello!
We are recording this on July 29th, 2019, one day before the 35th anniversary of the airing of Santa Barbara's first episode. And this episode 0 is going to be devoted to the 5 promotional ads that ran during July of 1984 before Santa Barbara started.
Now, do you know anything about the history of what made them want to put on this show? What gave them the creative idea to put on this show?
I have no idea.
Oh.
That's the kind of thing we'll be exploring in the coming weeks as we watch Santa Barbara. I think we could focus on one actor or something every week. Maybe
sounds good.
If we post a week's worth of episode, we'll do spotlight on Mason Capwell or something like that. Spotlight on one of the actors, or spotlight on the writers to see what caused them to create this show. I'll do a bit that way. We only have to do a bit of research on one thing per week.
Save a bit of work.
Well, no one wants to get everything all at once. So I think what we'll do is we're going to watch these episodes in real time here, these little commercials, and then we'll comment on them. And if we have to edit them out at some point in the future, that'll be okay. So this is the first one.
I tell you that if he sets one foot in Santa Barbara, if he tries to hurt my daughter Kelly, I'll destroy him. Santa Barbara. See it from the beginning, July.
Lloyd Bachner.
Oh. So that is C.C. Capwell talking about Joe Perkins, who is he is very concerned that he might set foot in Santa Barbara and see his daughter Kelly. So that's all we know. Well, obviously the beginning of that was clipped, so maybe there was more, but these are very short. But we don't know why Joe Perkins is such a troublemaker.
No, but obviously, looking at Lloyd Bachner's face, he's got a very intense history with this person.
And so this is clearly the patriarch of what we will come to know as the Capwell family, C.C. Capwell, played by Canadian actor Lloyd Bachner.
Huge fan of Lloyd Bachner. I think he actually spent some time in his acting career in Vancouver, which is where we're based. And if you watch anything from the 60s or 70s, you will be familiar with Lloyd Bachner as an actor. And he was very famous for playing villains. So you'll see him as a villain in a lot of TV guest starring roles. And what would have been the timing of this vis-a-vis Dynasty? Because, of course, he was a big part of season, was it 1 and 2
He was
of
in
Dynasty?
1981, 1982 of Dynasty, and this is July 84, so it'll be about 2 years earlier. Lloyd Bachner played Cecil Colby on Dynasty, who memorably had a heart attack the night before his wedding to Alexis. Now, that brings us to an unfortunate thing that happened here for Santa Barbara, is that Lloyd Bachner had a heart attack before they could film the first episode of Santa Barbara. So he actually only appears in this ad.
So this is very tantalizing what he would have done with the role, and sort of the gravitas, I guess, he would have brought to this role, which we'll never get to see beyond this little 15-minute or 15-second trailer.
Now, I kind of get a vibe of a sort of a Blake Carrington type, if he's, head of a family.
Well, he's quite sinister. We're just looking at a still shot from the preview, and half of his face is in shadow, and he's got this very grim look on his face. So he actually looks quite sinister, and it's very foreboding.
Of all of the actors that appear in these trailers, he's the only one I would have recognized in 1984, so I would have been kind of excited, to see a face that I know. At the time, I was watching Days of Our Lives in Another World. I had just graduated from high school, and I thought, well, I don't have time to start watching another show.
Yeah.
So I had absolutely no intention of watching Santa Barbara, as these ads were tantalizingly airing to try to get me to watch the show.
And I never did watch Santa Barbara in the 80s, but I do remember the previews, and I remember being intrigued by it. And it just wasn't something that I had time for, that just wasn't really a part of our household when I was growing up to watch this sort of thing. But I remembered the ads, and I remembered the show from these previews. So they must have been really, really well put together by the marketing department.
And before we move on to the next one, on a completely unrelated note to Santa Barbara, but related to Dynasty, we just saw Gordon Thompson a couple of hours ago on The Young and the Restless. So I don't know how long he'll be on there.
Also a Canadian, by the way.
Yes, and I'm under the impression he lives in Canada, so I don't know how long he's popped down there.
If you grew up in Canada during the 70s, you'll actually remember Gordon Thompson from a children's show called The Polka Dot Door. And he was much less intimidating in that than he would be as Adam Carrington in Dynasty.
All right, the next ad is labeled Joe Perkins, so we're going to find out what this Joe Perkins guy is all about.
I tore my family apart. I took away the only woman I ever loved. But this summer, I'm coming home to Santa Barbara, and I'm going to get it all back. Santa Barbara, see the daytime saga from the beginning, Monday.
All right, he's coming back to Santa Barbara. They took away the only woman he ever loved. Do you think that might be Cece's daughter?
Well, it really does go with the promo with Cece in it, and they're in the same kind of lighting, very intense. So you know that someone's going to be butting heads, and it's probably those two.
Dane Witherspoon plays Joe Perkins, and according to IMDb, he had been in an episode of The Waltons, and an 8 is enough before starting Santa Barbara. And he only has 5 credits after leaving Santa Barbara, so I'm guessing he's not acting anymore.
Yeah.
And let's move on to the next.
When they took that away from me. But now, I don't just want my baby. I want revenge.
Santa Barbara, see it from the beginning, July 30th.
So this one is labeled Santana Andrade. She clearly is unhappy that someone took her baby. That makes sense. So we know
there's a baby involved. And again, she's lit in a way that makes her look like she really means business.
Yeah, and she's got a lot of hair.
And she's got a lot of hair.
Her IMDb picture here looks a bit more modern.
It does.
And she's had a lot of credits, both before and after Santa Barbara. So, and she was on Dynasty, apparently. So, all right, let's move on to the next one.
For a murder I didn't commit.
After I finally put all the pieces together.
I'm coming home to Santa Barbara.
Why did he have to come back?
Santa Barbara, see it from the beginning, July 30th.
All the pieces together, so there's going to be some mystery involved in this show.
So there is, once again, Joe Perkins, reiterating that he's coming back.
And a very familiar face.
And Robin Wright as Kelly Capwell, Cece's daughter, who that Joe Perkins better not mess with Cece's daughter.
Yeah.
But they're already doing trailers together, so I don't think Joe and Kelly are going to be kept apart for very long when he returns to Santa Barbara. But it looks like she's got some pieces to put together or something.
Well, it looks like she's not really as anxious to have him back as he is to get back to.
Yeah, that's the thing, the first couple made us think maybe there's some kind of Romeo and Juliet thing happening here, but she does not want to see him for some reason.
No, so we've got to find out what that's about.
We've got to put those pieces together too. Now, Robin Wright had done exactly one thing before Santa Barbara. She appeared on an episode of The Yellow Rose, which was the Sybil Shepherd show.
Oh, wow.
And she's done a few things afterwards.
Including a very famous movie, right?
The Princess Bride?
That's right.
Which we will talk about when we get to episode 380, I think.
All right.
Or is it 180?
We've got a little ways to talk about that, but
And
that's a spoiler.
Seem to recall from
episode.
the soap opera magazines that she dated Dane Witherspoon, who plays Joe Perkins.
Mm-hmm.
I assume they met on Santa Barbara and dated for some time. Don't know anything else about that, so don't know the details. And there's one more ad, so let's see.
Mason Catwell. I work hard. I try. And my father doesn't think of anything. My sister doesn't understand me. And the woman I want could care less. But I'm going to show them. And they'll be sorry. Santa Barbara. See it from the beginning. July 30th.
Oh, that's foreboding.
Yeah, so he's a Capwell. Seems to not get along too well with his family. He always reminded me a bit of Adam Carrington, actually.
He does. Actually, he even looks a little bit like Gordon Thompson, who we were just talking about a minute ago. And he's obviously C.C. Capwell's son, I assume.
Yes.
And
as far as we know.
As far as we know.
At this point.
Intriguing.
There may be changes to people's parentage as the years go on. So
wow, okay.
I won't reveal anything. I will try not to tell you anything about anything.
But at this point, as a new viewer, as I am, I've never seen the show before, and you're just seeing these intriguing little previews. And so what we can see is that 4 of them are obviously involving this family.
Yes, so we have basically one family. We have Santana. Mm-hmm. Someone took her baby.
Right.
I'm going to guess the Capwells may be involved.
But we don't know.
We don't know. She's the Joe Perkins is clearly not a Capwell, and then Santana Andrade is not a Perkins or a Capwell.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have a number of different storylines. We have the Joe and Kelly romance / one-sided romance at this point. Mm-hmm. We've got Santana coming back for revenge, and they took her baby, so I assume she'll want her baby back too at some point.
Yeah, and we don't know how old this baby is.
No, maybe Mason's her baby. Mason seems like he's going to be an all-round troublemaker.
Yes, because he's cited a lot of family members who he's got problems with.
The C.C. Capwell sounds like a guy who has a big company.
He's got a big
There's probably a lot of, Dad, I should run the company, and then maybe the sister thinks she should run the company. And then...
Well, the 2 Capwells are in business suits, so they're obviously people who are used to running things, whereas Joe is just in kind of his prison blues, I guess.
I don't remember what he was wearing, but he's
obviously not of the family.
You think he's in prison?
That was what I thought when I first saw those. It looked like he was.
We may find out tomorrow when we watch the first episode of Santa Barbara. 35 years after it originally aired. So some intriguing storylines, and by July 29th, they'd worn me down. I thought, okay, well, I had just graduated from high school in June.
Yeah.
I had a lazy July in a beautiful, warm city. And then in August, my summer job was supposed to start. And I was not going to be able to watch Santa Barbara, let alone Another World. So I had basically 5 days. I thought, you know what? I'll just watch the first 5 episodes of Santa Barbara. So then I'll know. If I'm ever on Jeopardy, I'll know the characters, from that 1 week. I'll watch a week. Then I'll start my job. And I was planning to tape Another World using my stereo, which I had hooked up to a timer. Come on at 1 o'clock. the cassette recorder would be on record already. It would record for an hour. This is lucky because in Kelowna, the NBC was on Channel 6.
So these are the days of very primitive technology.
So you could pick up Channel 6 on the very bottom end of the FM dial. So that was very lucky that NBC's Channel 6 in Kelowna, because I taped a lot of even nighttime shows when I had to go do band trips or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I could tape Night Court or something, So that was the plan. I would watch Days of Our Lives, Another World in Santa Barbara for 1 week, and then I would switch to Just Another World, which I'd been watching since I was a baby. That was the plan. I will let you know next week how that turned out.
It sounds like a very complicated plan.
Well, let's just say I would, but in the days before the VCR, that was my only option.
Mm-hmm.
Just like today, we're using the microphone on your laptop to record this podcast. Even though everyone said you should buy a microphone. So
we're too cheap for that.
We're too cheap for that. We think you can hear us.
Well, you may not be able to hear me. You can probably hear Misha. But he knows more about the show than I do anyway.
Well, that was one of the things when I was researching for the show, for the podcast. There are very few resources for Santa Barbara out there. I was surprised. There is a French site that has some good information. So what I will be doing as we watch the episodes before we record our podcast, I will be taking notes. And there's no reason not to put these notes on the internet every week so that there is a resource out there with information. So hopefully I can hand that over to you, that's our web person, to compile that data into a format that does not look like it was created by a computer programmer from 1993, which is how my website currently looks. So the current plan is to put these up on YouTube, and then if we end up going to audio only, that would be kind of boring, but we also are looking at getting it on iTunes. I don't know if we can get that done in the same week, right at the beginning, but definitely I can put this up on YouTube tomorrow, and then the next one will be probably Saturday or Sunday. So we're watching on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and then sometime on Saturday can edit them together. Hopefully we won't have to cut out too much stuff. We've closed the windows so that the cars going by can't be heard. I've turned off the fan so the fan can't be heard. And it's the middle of July, and we are very hot. So, I'm going to turn the fan back on very soon as we say goodbye, and we hope you enjoy the next 2,137 episodes of Misha and Dianne Watch Santa Barbara.
Oh, you'll be thoroughly sick of us by then.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Misha and Dianne Watch Santa Barbara. Hear it from the beginning, July 30th.